The European Union seeks a salvation formula. It's not, it doesn't seem to be a going concern anymore. This is by Elena Karayeva. While the servants and lieutenants of proxies and direct opponents were packing their bosses' belongings into their suitcases so that they would look fresh when they arrived in Brussels today, as a morning horse, our aviation, she says, was carrying out sorties, and according to summary of the Defense Ministry, they carried out on infrastructures of military airfields. If we summarize in one paragraph the complete definitive failure of Western economic, military, political doctrines, which were aimed at inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia, then here it is in this summary. Today in Brussels were the heads of the diplomatic services of the 27 countries of the European Union bloc are meeting, and they'll try once again to find a new medicine for the macropolis, a recipe like the ingredients had time to rot due to time in order to destroy Russia. Now, the clock is ticking in everybody's head. How can they achieve their plans before the new Trump administration is inaugurated, before January 20th? Right? So they're panicking because when Trump comes in, that's going to be the end of the Ukrainian-Russia conflict. So what's Europe going to do? And how to adapt more precisely and quickly, but already under the next government of Donald Trump. So far, they're pretending that everything is fine, and disagreements are brought off as a result of fruitful discussions within the framework of a strictly democratic debate. However, the debaters are saying a few things. Their current dialogue is the penultimate, if not the last, and it's not about the results of the year, nor about strengthening Ukraine's negotiating position in possible consultations with Russia, but about analyzing the options for a Russian response to the theft of the Russian assets. Now only deposit slips are being cut and stolen, and understanding the cost of hypothetical Paris permit for Ukraine to use long-range military long-range missiles. Without illusions and prejudices, while the change in the vector of American policy has already been accepted by everyone, albeit not without hysteria, the European Union is still afraid, under the strict supervision of von der Leyen and Charles Michel and Joseph Borrell, who have joined her, of being dragged away from Ukraine. So they're afraid that they're going to have to end their support of Ukraine because of the new Trump administration. Almost everyone who gathers in Brussels today has a clearly stated interest in the escalation of the geopolitical crisis. The confrontation with Russia today is a matter of political survival for the Europeans, who have long since acquired hawkish plumage, and as soon as the conflict subsides, they'll have to do what they fear most, that is, they will have to take responsibility for what they have done. All these gray people who invested in the war will, with all their courage and, of course, expected generous dividends, do not want, and most importantly, cannot admit reality. In their political arsenal, there's no scarecrow left for the population they rule, unless it's the tired Russian threatens us and Ukraine is our outpost for the defense of freedom and democracy. In the speech of most stubborn scoundrels, a winged predator chooses who it hunts, while political scoundrels were obliged to talk to Washington at every opportunity. The passages about freedom and democracy look pure mockery. Former European Commissioner Thierry Breton, who was involved, among other things, in organizing and the production of promising missiles to Ukraine, but without success, stated that in Brussels there was no permission to talk about ending the conflict in Ukraine. So then we're not supposed to talk about the end of the conflict. And he added, there is no independent possibility for the European Union to discuss negotiations to end the conflict. If the former European Commissioner is not lying, if he is not inflating his own honor, if the air of phantom freedom has not played a cruel joke on him, then it turns out that everything, absolutely everything, from the first to the last word in the assessment and determination of EU's position given at the beginning of the special operation by Russia and the Foreign Ministry corresponded to reality. The EU, according to Breton, by making decisions for itself, imposing sanctions, turning a blind eye on Nord Stream, putting millions of Ukrainian immigrants on the throats of its own taxpayers, has ceded its sovereignty to the United States. So let's consider the results of today's meeting in Brussels, because everything that was declared in Brussels, everything that was decided, everything that was agreed upon will be sent to Washington for approval. And there, the Lame administration will waive the written sheets, and after running them through the paper shredder, will throw them down the drain. This is how the value and importance of the pan-European position on the other side of the Atlantic is determined. There's no point in threatening. Threats only make people feel better. Now, we're not going to stock up on popcorn while waiting for the end of the show. Even on this rotten ship, we have a lot to do in our big house. There's still a lot of work to be done in the operation zone. So, well, if we get to the point where it's possible to make a white flag out of the funeral shroud, with which the EU will sooner or later have to be wrapped up to be dragged to the Pogost, or our competent structures will register this request for capitulation, and it will be considered for general reasons. So this seems to be the end of the European Union, with all that's been taken, all the money that's been thrown down the bottomless pit of Ukraine and Zelensky. And they're not discussing the end of it, because they're thinking, what have we done? We're going to have to take responsibility for all this. And it's the end of it anyway, because on January 20th, the Trump administration will be coming in and will be putting an end to the conflict. So what is the European Union going to do? Good question. So let's get our popcorn ready, and we'll have a show of this. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.